All right, so my name is Stephen Rivas. I'm the product manager for WIN-911. Today we're going to go over the contacts utility. This webinar is going to be a little bit shorter than usual, so there's not too much information to recover, but the functionality of the contacts utility was a popular feature request, so we wanted to have a webinar dedicated to it. So it's certainly not going to take an hour long, but it should be about 30 minutes or so, or maybe a little less than that. I'm running this webinar on my own today, so throughout the webinar, if you have questions, use that GoToWebinar utility. You'll see a questions box there to submit some questions at the end. I'll go through those and answer them all there. All right. So the contacts utility is a new desktop application that allows operators to quickly make changes to their notification callout settings without the need to access the full WIN-911 configuration. We include it with all the WIN-911 licenses, so it's not an add-on that you'll need to purchase, and we released it with our most recent release, which is 4/19/17, at the beginning of this month, which means it's available today. Those of you who have been with us for a while with version 7, this application is very similar to what we had called Xtools. So it's kind of a replacement for Xtools, but it doesn't do everything Xtools does. It's a little more limited than that, and we'll get to that in a minute. So basically what it lets you do is modify your basic tactic schedules and roles. So a basic tactic, for those who are unaware, is a call out list. So operators will be able to add or remove contacts from that call out list, as well as edit, delays, and retries. You can't create a new tactic or delete an existing tactic with the tool. For that, you would need full access to the WIN-911 workspace. So this utility is not for creating new call-out lists. You can also change schedules associated with different contacts within the WIN-911 system. So, for example, if an operator needed to change the schedule that's assigned to them, they can launch this application, go to the Connections tab, and change the schedule that's associated with that person. You can also modify roles assigned to individual contacts. So roles provide a way to group your contacts together and are utilized mostly by the advanced tactics. So by changing a role, you can change who will be notified if you're using advanced tactics. I'm going to show you guys a demo, and in that demo I'll show you a common use case of how roles can be used to change an on-call operator with contacts utility. All right, so the contacts utility is a standalone WPF application, desktop app, which is delivered to a system with a separate installer. Its only prerequisite is .NET 4.8, which you can get from Microsoft directly, or if you download WIN-911 in our install folder, we have an offline installer of 4.8. But in some of the newer operating systems, it's included already, like for example, the Windows 10 1903. Or if it's not included, you can use this offline installer to put it on your system. You can also install this thing anywhere you like within your network. It doesn't need to be running on the same machine as WIN-911, but you could run it there too. So as long as you have network access, then you'll be able to run this utility and connect it to your WIN-911 system. Access to the WIN-911 system is secured with Windows authentication. So the contact utility communicates with the dispatcher module over an HTTP endpoint, which is again secured by Windows authentication. So while you don't necessarily log into the contacts utility, the Windows user account that it executes under needs to have permission to access the WIN-911 system, and I can go over that in the demo later so you can see exactly what I'm talking about. And you can launch this desktop application from, you can launch it separately on its own, or you can link it to a button within an HMI screen. We've also made the utility so that it always launches on top of other windows. So if you do launch it from an HMI screen that's maybe locked down, this utility will stay on top of those screens so that you're not battling with which screen's on top. And today I'll show you guys a demo of how you can launch it from Factory Talk. but you can do it from any HMI application. This is what the application looks like itself. So you can see here, this is a basic tactic that's loaded up. We've made the utility touchscreen friendly, so you notice all the buttons that you can click on are fairly large. So if you are using a touchscreen, it should be easy to navigate. So the first thing when an operator launches this utility, the first thing they'll need to do is select a tactic from their drop-down list. So these, so the drop-down, users must select that tactic from the drop-down list at the top, and then the tactic's going to load. So it's already loaded here. Obviously, you can see that. I would suggest giving your tactics a descriptive name so operators know which list they're editing. And if you need to add more details, you can do that with the description field below. So by default, this detail screen right here is going to be hidden. We've done that because it takes up quite a bit of real estate on the screen, and these settings don't change too often. I've expanded them already, as you can see. But when you first launch this utility and open a tactic, that's going to be collapsed so that it's not taking up all the real estate. And a couple things there real quick. The things you can change here are how many times this tactic will repeat. You can also change the delay before notification. So that what that setting is for is if you don't want, if this is how long it's going to take before we get down to the actual contact list before we start notifying people. So a common use case would be if an alarm occurs, let's give the alarm 5 minutes to clear. If it doesn't clear before 5 minutes, then go ahead and start notifying. That's what that setting is for. So then you have the basic grid that is down at the bottom. This is the main list of contacts where you can add, remove, or reorder them. You can also change retries, delay between retries, and delay between connections themselves. So this is everything you can do in the main configuration with tactics, but it's limited to editing only. So remember, you can't add, or you can't create or delete existing tactics. You can only edit what is already here. So I can select all those users and remove them from this tactic, but I always have to have at least one person in here. And I can make all these changes to it. I just can't delete the tactic itself. And this is the other tab. This is the connections tab. This is where you can change the schedules associated with individual users and the roles associated with the different users. So you can this only has a few contacts and it doesn't have too many, but let's say if you had a fair number of contacts, we've got the search bar at the top so you can quickly filter your list down. We also have, let's see if I can get my mouse over there. It doesn't look like it, but you have the filters on the individual columns too, so that you have more advanced filtering options for those columns. So you can do contains, does not contain type filters in there. So this is where you can, so again, this is where you can change the schedules assigned to individual contacts or change the roles. And again, I'll show you guys how we can utilize roles with an advanced tactic here in just a second. So really that's it. Those are the main two screens of the contacts utility. You can change basic tactics and you can change connections. So let's just do a demo real quick. So here I'm running Server 2019. I already have the utility installed, but when you download WIN-911, this is what is included in the folder. You'll see there's this tools folder, and in this tools folder is this contacts utility installer. So you can run this here. Because my screen sharing changed, let me check to make sure y'all can still see my screen. Actually, just stop it and start it again. Okay, so this is that utility I was talking about. You run this and that will install the utility. It's a really quick install. It only takes a few seconds to install it. Again, its prereq is .NET 4.8. We include that with our download if you don't have it already on the system. Once it is installed, you'll find it in your start menu here. You can click and launch it. And the first thing you'll actually see, I've already launched it here, but the first thing you'll see is this screen here where you're specifying the location of your dispatcher. So I'm running WIN-911 on the same machine, so I've got it set to this computer. If it was connecting to a remote system, I would be typing in the IP address or the host name of that WIN-911 system here and then hitting the save button down there. So I'm leaving it on this computer. And what you want to do is hit this drop down and select a tactic, and that tactic's going to load, and you can see the details are hidden here. You can see the description, repeats, and so on. So here you have full control over a tactic, just like you do in the main configuration. And let's see, make sure you guys can still see the screen. All right. So you can select individuals in here, move them around in the list. So let's say you want to reorder it, or let's say I don't need to notify Tom anymore, so I can delete him. As soon as I hit that save button, he's no longer in this call out list, so he won't be notified for this particular tactic. And let's say maybe it was just switching it, so you hit the plus button, and let's say I want to add him back, so you select him, hit the checkbox, and hit OK, and now he's back in the list. And maybe I want to take Wayne Smith out of the tactic, so you can do that there. So it's really basic tactic editing. It's nothing too new for anyone that has used the software before. It's just allowing you to do this in a different application. And another thing real quick, whenever you have some unsaved changes, so you have to hit save obviously to make your changes, and whenever you do hit save, these changes take effect immediately. But you'll have this indicator at the top that you have unsaved changes. If you try to close the utility and you haven't saved it, it will warn you to make sure that you're not exiting out before making your changes. All right, so the connections tab. This is where you can change the schedules associated with individual users. So if I hit a drop down, I can just change the schedule, hit save, and now that person is going to be using that schedule. So typically what we see is people almost always have their contacts set to always, and then when they don't want them to receive notifications anymore, they can just choose never and hit save, and now that person will stop receiving notifications. So that's pretty basic. Some people want more advanced stuff than that, and so they'll have different schedules. These are all the prepackaged schedules that are built into the software. So all these schedules have to be pre-built, and then you can select from them in the list and assign them to individual users. So again, the primary use case for this utility is that operators will be using it, and we wanted to allow them enough flexibility to change who's going to be notified, but don't give them too much control so that they can really change too much within your WIN-911 configuration. So this is the connections section. You can add role, like I was saying, you can add roles and remove roles. So let's show you guys how you can use roles for the on-call operator. So if I go to my main, you'll see how it's still popping up on top, which, honestly, it can get a little frustrating. I think we're going to need to make a configuration change to allow you to control whether it's on top or not. But anyway, this is the main configuration for WIN-911. If I have an advanced tactic, what I can do with that is come in here and do a quick tactic that checks to see what time of day it is. In this case, I'll check to see if it's the standard hours and say okay. And if it's true, it's going to go out onto the right. So standard hours, I think, are 8 to 5. So if it's true, it's going to notify who's on the right or just go this way. If it's not true, then it will go over to the left. So so basically, if it goes to the left, it's non-standard hours. So we go to notification, drag a notification block on here. We're going to edit it and say notify anyone that has the label of on call. And then on the right, we'll notify anyone that has the regular operator role. All right, so if it's normal business hours, it will notify the operators. If it's not normal business hours, it will notify whoever has the on-call role. So I can name this, and there's more to the configuration. I'd have to take this tactic and assign it to a strategy and so on. We'll give it a name of on-call tactic and save it. So now if I go back to the contact utility, I can now control who will get notified during off hours by moving this role around from different users. So if it was the operator phone that was always going to be on call, that may be the case, and we can choose that and say okay. If maybe Tom Jones is going to be on call this week, then I just come in here, select him, choose on call, and choose on call, and then hit save. And that means now Tom Jones and myself would start getting notifications anytime it's after hours. And you can, and that's regardless of the schedule. You can set the tactic to notify you regardless of what your schedule is set to, or you can have it honor your schedule. It's a choice within the tactic when you're configuring it. All right, so that's how you can use roles with the contacts utility. So you can see how you can change your schedule. You can also change your name. I don't think too many people will be changing their names in here, but we did allow you to change your name if you so choose. You can also see that each notification method is indicated by the icon that's to the right of their name and the connection string. You can't change the connection string, but you can change the name. All right, so that is the contacts utility. So what if you want to launch it from an HMI screen? So this is the standard FactoryTalk client that's installed with FactoryTalk, so it's a demo. So if I want to launch it from this alarms screen, it's pretty simple. Before I get into that though, what we've gone ahead and done is we've written a few articles already that just show you how to do this. So it takes you step by step on launching the utility from an HMI screen. I think we've got 3 hosted up right now, and we're working on a few more, so those will be available. I mean, it's pretty basic stuff, but we felt like we would just go ahead and document it for you just in case you needed it. So in this case, all we want to do is add a button to the screen, drag it on, go to the action tab. For the release action, we can double click that, choose app start, click next, browse to the location of the utility, which is program files x86 WIN-911 software contacts utility. Choose that application, say open, finish. Go to the up appearance so you can put a label on your button. So you could put, I'll just put contacts utility. Say okay, do a save on the screen. All right, so here is the alarm screen. Here's my button. If I click the button, it launches utility. You can see I can move the HMI screen underneath it. It's always on top of it. I can choose my tactic. Say I want to make a change, so let's remove Wayne Smith from the list and then add Tom Jones to it. Hit OK, hit save, close it, and now I've made my change and I'm already back to the HMI screen. I don't need to go to the normal configuration screen. So one thing I wanted to show you real quick is I did say it's controlled by Windows authentication, and what I mean by that is the contacts utility is accessing this the dispatcher module, which is hosted by IIS. So all the permissions are controlled by IIS and window and folder permissions. So if I come into the WW group folder, go to this dispatcher folder and change the security settings. This is where I can set which users are going to be able to access this WIN-911 system. If you are in a work group environment, so you don't have a domain, what that means is that you'll need to create a Windows user account that is on the WIN-911 system and on the remote system that has the same name, same password. If you're in a domain, it's a little bit different. You just add that particular domain user here, or you could create a new domain group, maybe call it WIN-911 access, and then put that into this security section here, and that's how you can control who can access this WIN-911 system. So that is what I mean by Windows authentication. And so I did mention that we have those articles written. So there's 3 of them up there right now. We're working on a few more for InTouch Edge, HMI, InTouch OMI, and I think those are the 2 that are in work. So if we need to, whatever we need to create, just let us know and we'll create those documents for y'all so that you can see how you can launch the utility from those HMI packages. If you want to submit some feature requests about the contacts utility, perhaps there's something that we didn't include that you want to see included, please head over to WIN-911.com and go to the send feedback section, and you can go to the features page and submit those feedback ideas there. You can also just contact myself or the sales team and let us know, and we can discuss any feedback that you have about the product. And one last thing, we launched WIN-911 Mobile at the beginning of this month, which is our new mobile application that is replacing Mobile 911. And we're a finalist for the Control Engineering Choice Award. So if you guys have time or would like to vote for us, we would greatly appreciate it. You can head over to controlengineering.com or controleng.com/NPE and log in and find us under the mobile app section and vote for the application there. Again, we would really appreciate that. And with that, that is the conclusion of the webinar. So we'll go ahead and start answering any questions that we may have. All right. First question is, can you set times for certain people? For instance, I would like Bob and Bill to be on call from 7 to 5:30, Monday through Friday. Then Steve and Joe be on call from 5:30 to 7 a.m., Monday through Friday, and also all weekend. Well, there's a few different ways you can do that. I mean, without getting too specific about the times that you put in there, you can pre-create or just create these schedules and give them whatever name that you want, so that when you come into the contact utility, you go to that particular connection and assign that schedule to that person, and then they will only receive notifications during those times that you set. There's no way to do the on-call type deal that I said ahead of time in this particular manner, I don't believe, but you can use that on-call role to in your advanced tactics to kind of accomplish the same thing. So Joe, you asked me that. I think we should probably sit down and talk about that a little bit further, so that we can talk about that in greater detail. So the role utility, the contact utility, the next question is it still using Silverlight? The contact utility does not use Silverlight. It's a desktop, it's a WPF application. The main configuration is still using Silverlight. We're working to replace that with a WPF app as well. So instead of it being a browser accessible workspace, it will be a standalone WPF desktop app in the future. So that is the plan moving forward, to remove Silverlight, is replace it with a desktop application. Next question, does WIN-911 always look at the schedule for a connection first? For example, delays wouldn't apply if a connection wasn't currently on call. The delays are always evaluated. So if I kind of get where you're going with that. It's like if you had person 1 and then person 2 and person 3, and your call out list, if you had a delay between person 1 and person 2, but neither of them were on schedule, so person 1's off schedule, person 2's off schedule, but person 3 is on schedule, then those delays will be honored. I'll have to double check with that. I'm almost certain that that's the case, but Richard, I can follow up with you on that to get you the concrete answer, but I'm fairly certain that it will honor those delays, and so there would be a delay before the notification to the third person. Or what? I mean, that's just an example. Could go be as many people as you want on the list. The next question is, does the contact utility track changes and who made them? No, it doesn't have an audit trail. That's something that we're looking into for the main product, is how can we track everything and make that available. Right now, when you make a change to the WIN-911 system, it's all logged under the user that's running all the WIN-911 services, so there's no way to determine which particular user did anything. as we work on the new workspace that will be the WPF app, that's something that we will be changing so that individual users will have to log into the workspace themselves. And at that point, then having a true audit log will be something we can implement. All right. Is the FTView application something that distributors can get access to with demo WIN-911 software licenses? We have a demo room. The Factory Talk View demo, it's just that's just the Factory Talk software that is available from Rockwell. That particular demo I was showing has no license or anything like that. It has a grace period of 7 days, and I think that if you run a client, it can only run for 2 hours at a time. So anyone can, I guess, get access to that install. It's not something we distribute or will ever distribute, as you need to get that from a Rockwell distributor. I just use Factory Talk as an example. If you work with GE or you work with Aviva, and you want to show it with those products, you can do that as well. So I'm not quite sure how to answer. I can't give you the actual Rockwell software. If you just want a screen with a button on it, I mean, that's something we could make available to you. Next question is Microsoft.NET Core to the product. Yes, everything we create is .NET. So that's why you need to have .NET 4.8 installed for the contacts utility. We also, the core WIN-911 product, the actual version 4 piece, is also targeting .NET 4.8. That was a change from version 3 to version 4. We were targeting 4.5, and we wanted to move that up to the newer version of .NET, as Microsoft 4.5 no longer has mainstream support from Microsoft. So we wanted to move to the latest available version, which is 4.8. Is there a way to disable the default schedules? I don't want operators maintenance getting confused with so many schedules to choose from. You can delete them. So if you go to the WIN-911 configuration, we package in some default schedules to show examples of what you can do with the schedule. But if you don't want those, you can go into the schedules and in the main WIN-911 configuration and delete them, and maybe have like only 1 or 2 schedules for them to choose from in that list. Can the utility connect to multiple systems? No, it can't connect to multiple systems. However, you can have multiple copies of the contacts utility on one system. Let's see, what's the best way to, I can try and show you that real quick since we have some time. Let me pause this guy and okay, let's get back to you. All right, you should be seeing my screen again. Oh, okay. All right, so with the contact utility, what you could do, if you want to connect to multiple WIN-911 systems, you can come into the folder where the contacts utility is. And what I would do to make this possible is create a folder called System1. System 1, and then I can create another one called System 2, and then just copy all of this into each folder. So here's System 1, and here is System 2. So now what I can do is go to System 1 folder, launch the contacts utility. Granted, this is going to error because I don't have a computer called System 1, but I would type the location to System 1 and hit save. It's not going to be able to connect to anything because there's nothing there. And then I can go into the other folder, call this one System 2, and hit save. And now it's going to try and connect to a system that doesn't exist called System 2. And so now I can, let's say I could launch this one to connect to System 1, and then I can launch this one to connect to System 2. And you can run them at the same time, so you can have multiple instances running, and you can do this as many times as you want. You can link these into an HMI screen as well. So that's one way you can accomplish that. If we get enough requests to do this, it's maybe something we just build natively into the application so you can connect to multiple WIN-911 systems without having to do something like that. All right, so hopefully that answers your question. So let's get back to the others. In the connections tab, you showed that a person had a never schedule but was on call. Can you explain what takes precedence? Is that a schedule or the role priority? That depends on how you have your escalation configured. So if you, let me show your screen again. When you're defining a tactic, you have an option when you're putting in a notification block. So this is for advanced tactics only. So if I go to edit this block, I can check this box that says ignore schedule. So if there's a contact in WIN-911 that's got a schedule of never, but they also have the on-call role, and I've checked this box that says ignore schedule, they're going to get a notification regardless of their never schedule. So that's something you can configure within an advanced tactic. With a basic tactic, there are no roles, so it's whatever their schedule is set to, that's when they're going to get notified. So if it was set to never, then they won't get a notification. So hopefully that answers it. It's not just on this role. Like if I did a regular notification block too that wasn't role based, I just chose myself here. I can also choose ignore schedule, and so you can see it's got an X through that schedule icon. So, but this is only in advanced tactics. You can't do this in a basic tactic. Okay. All right, Richard, I'll get back to you on that delay stuff. Will the context utility run with version 3.19.9? No, you have to run with version 4 because of the .NET changes. There are service contracts that aren't matching. It will not work with anything but version 4 moving forward. So it is included with your license. So if you upgrade to version 4, there's nothing to add on to it. Price-wise, it'll just be included. So this is not a licensed product. It's just if you have WIN-911 and you have a dispatcher, you can connect to it and make those changes. How does licensing work when a contact has more than one notification method, email or WIN-911 mobile? Each particular contact method is licensed individually. So if you had, for email, you can have as many as you want, right? But for mobile, that's a limited thing. So they're still handled independently. So the contact utility has nothing to do with it at all. So email, SMS, and voice connections are all unlimited, but WIN-911 mobile is license limited. So if you buy interactive, that's 10 WIN-911 mobile seats you have, and if you have advanced, that's 25, and then you can add more onto that afterward. Are you aware of WIN-911 was successfully tested with TATSoft Factory Studio, also a .NET product, which is also a .NET product? I'm not aware of that, no. I mean, I know TATSoft, you can connect to TATSoft through an OPC connection and monitor tags through it, so I don't see why it wouldn't cause a problem at all. I don't believe. You can have multiple versions. Let's say if I don't know what version cuts off targets, but if it was a different version of .NET, that's fine too. You can have multiple versions of .NET running on the same computer. And can you go over security for remote nodes? So I was kind of answering that question earlier. I can just reiterate it real quick. When you launch the contact utility, it's assuming you're launching it under a particular user context. So in this case, I think the user I'm logged into is called Spectre. And when I launch that contact utility, it's going to try and access the dispatcher with that particular user context. So if I go back to the www root folder, it's talking to a web service that's hosted by IIS, and it's a dispatcher web service. Technically, it is, I believe it is this service that it is contacting. So you could just edit this individual file if you wanted, or if you wanted to just be more encompassing, you can just go to the dispatcher folder. So it honors what you have set into security here. So I'm running it as a Spectre user that is on this computer. So it is an administrator on this computer, so it's going to have access to it and it's going to be able to load it, obviously. So you saw me using it earlier. If I installed this contacts utility on a remote computer and these two computers have nothing to do with each other, it won't work out of the box. If it's a work group, I would have to create a user with the same name and same password on both boxes and add that user to the security of this particular folder. It's just a dispatcher folder in this case. And then he'll be able to call the web service that's hosted by the dispatcher module, which again is hosted by IIS, and then he can interact with the system. If it's a domain, then you don't have to do that create the duplicate accounts. You can just add the domain user to this folder, and then that domain user will be able to call this service that's hosted by IIS. If you want to go that route, I think the easiest way to manage it is to create a domain group and put the domain group in here, and then you can just modify that domain group and give users access to that particular group, which would then give them access to the dispatcher. So you're not having to come in here and change all these settings each time. So hopefully that answers your question. If I upgrade from 4.19.9, will I lose all of my settings? No, it will. If you install version 4 on top of version 3, it will migrate your settings to the new version. So you don't have to reconfigure anything. Any thought of adding this functionality to WIN-911 mobile? Yeah, there's a lot of things that we're thinking about adding to WIN-911 mobile in regard to user management. We think that a lot of people use the mobile app and want to manage settings like this moving forward, whether it's WIN-911 mobile or a separate WIN-911 administrator type application. I don't know about that, but that's something that we plan on focusing on when we redo the UI is basically alarm notification management and trying to make things as easy as possible for operators to make changes that they need to. So yeah, maybe it'll be WIN-911 mobile, maybe it'll be a new application that is a little more geared toward administration and not notification. So WIN-911 mobile it's a notification method. Okay, that appears to be the last question. So if there aren't any more, I think we'll go ahead and conclude the webinar. If you have any questions after the fact, just let me know, and I can answer them. And for those of you who I say get back to them, I'll try and get back to you today and answer those questions. I may just give you guys a call or shoot you an email to to close the loop there. All right. So again, thanks everyone for participating in the webinar. And if you need anything else, just let us know.